Welcome to This Week in History. I'm Tyler Boeh, and here's some new jokes about old news. December 7th. In 1787, Delaware became the first state in the Union. Well, technically there wasn't a union yet, it was just one state. Delaware was all by itself, just kicking it solo as the single state of America, until Pennsylvania signed up on December 12th, and we officially became united. In 1907, at London's National Sporting Club, Eugene Corey became the first referee to officiate a boxing match from inside the ring. If you're familiar at all with the sport of boxing, that really seems like the best place to be. Although the most common place that people try to officiate a boxing match from is at home on their couch. In 1941, the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Honolulu, Hawaii, was attacked by hundreds of Japanese warplanes and submarines. 2,403 U.S. soldiers and citizens were killed, and this event initiated the U.S.'s entrance into World War II. President Roosevelt despised this military action as a surprise attack and immediately asked Congress to declare war, which they did the following day. I think the most surprising thing about surprise attacks is that there aren't more surprise attacks. I mean, making a declaration of war before you strike seems like an oddly formal and courteous announcement to make before you start murdering a bunch of people. So the U.S. was like, yeah, we're upset about the killing, but also, little heads up would have been nice. In 1956, Basketball Hall of Famer Larry Bird was born. His mom went 1 for 1 in deliveries that day, and while the doctor received credit for the assist, Mom was the real MVP. In 1963, CBS introduced instant replay in an Army versus Navy football game. In 1963, CBS introduced instant replay in an Army versus Navy football game. December 8th. In 1542, Mary Stuart, better known as Mary Queen of Scots, was born. When she was just 6 days old, her father, the reigning king of Scotland, died, and she assumed the throne, which is ridiculous. I mean, who in their right mind would make an infant their leader? In 1776, George Washington and his retreating army crossed the Delaware River from New Jersey into Pennsylvania to escape the advancing British forces. Washington was disappointed about the retreat, but like most people, he was excited to get out of New Jersey. In 1886, famous Mexican artist and husband of Frida Kahlo, Diego Rivera, was born. Rivera was a painter and muralist specializing in frescoes. Some of his work was really off the wall, but most of it was on it. In 1886, at a convention in Columbus, Ohio, the American Federation of Labor was founded. Then everyone took a mandatory paid break. In 1927, America's most prestigious think tank, the Brookings Institute, was created by philanthropist Robert Brookings. And believe it or not, he came up with the idea all by himself. In 1962, the International Typographical Union began a strike that closed all 9 New York City newspapers for 114 days. Despite the incredible size and scope of the strike, nobody heard anything about it until late March. December 9th. In 1884, Levant Richardson received a patent for the ball-bearing roller skates, which were much more popular than his previous invention of the ball-bearing trousers. In 1902, actress Margaret Hamilton was born. She had an incredibly successful Hollywood career up until 1939, when tragedy struck her family. Her sister was killed when a house fell on top of her head, and just days later, Margaret died when she was melted by a bucket of water. In 1793, New York City's first daily newspaper, the American Minerva, was first published by author and lexicographer Noah Webster. And to be completely honest, I just had to use a Webster's dictionary to look up the words Minerva and lexicographer. In 1921, GM engineer Thomas Midgley Jr. discovered that adding tetraethyl lead to gasoline would help eliminate engine knock. Unfortunately, he also discovered that years of working with lead-based chemicals will poison you. In 1953, John Malkovich started being himself. Happy birthday, John. December 10th. In 1830, famous poet and known agoraphobic Emily Dickinson was born, marking one of the few times she actually went outside. In 1851, American librarian and creator of the Dewey Decimal System, Melville Dewey, was born in hospital room MDS 649.122. December 11th. In 1872, Pinckney Benton Stewart Pinchback became the first black governor in America when he was elected governor of Louisiana. And I thought Barack Obama had a tough name for politics. In 1882, New York City Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia was born. His parents described the delivery as chaotic and disorganized, and his arrival was delayed several hours due to overcrowding. In 1987, Charlie Chaplin's trademark cane and bowler hat sold at Christie's for 82,000 British pounds. It was a silent auction. December 12th. In 1925, the Motel Inn, the world's first motel, opened in San Luis Obispo, California. Now, travelers from far and wide could enjoy the unique experience of trying to fall asleep while also listening to everything going on in the parking lot right outside their door. In 2000, GM announced it would be phasing out Oldsmobile. Meanwhile, Life announced it would be phasing out Oldsmobile drivers. December 13th. In 1964, U.S. President Lyndon Johnson and Mexican President Gustavo Ordaz triggered an explosion to reroute the Rio Grande River and settle a century-old border dispute. This has got to be the most American solution to an international conflict ever. We used peaceful diplomacy and also still got to blow stuff up. In 1982, the Century Armored Car Company of New York City was robbed of $11 million. It was the single biggest theft in the history of America. Unless, of course, you count the actual theft of America. In 2003, U.S. soldiers captured Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein after they found him in a 6-foot deep hole. He was taken into custody, tried, convicted of crimes against humanity, executed, and then put back in a 6-foot deep hole. That's all for this week in history. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your comments, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe so you catch all of my latest videos.